I've been contemplating lately. What is evil? What is evil? Due to the continued state-sponsored executions of citizens, especially those of sub-Saharan persuasion, it truly makes me reflect on the following question. What is evil? Sure, I suppose you could use your black belt in Google Foo and you can ascertain the definition of the word. It's not hard to do. So obviously, as an adjective, is a profoundly immoral, wicked. Profoundly immoral and wicked. As a noun, it is profound immorality and wickedness with regards to a supernatural force. I was thinking about that. I was thinking about evil and what types of evil exist in the world today in the midst of the pandemic and the continued rampant abuse of some police officers, not all, but all are implicit if they continue to protect each other. That's another thing I don't quite understand. They say a few bad, but it's like they pick and choose when they want to stereotype. You get a couple bad black people, all black people are bad. You get a couple cops, there's just a couple, not bad. But you heard the saying, a couple bad apples spoils the fucking batch. And the thing when it comes to units, whether it's military or police, it's a club, it's a fraternity. So you may sit there and say, not all cops are bad, but the good cops, or the cops that are not taking action, that's going to be a revolving theme today. The cops that aren't taking action, they're just as bad. They're allowing it to happen, and they're protecting them. Part of it is they can't do anything about it, because if you speak out against a fellow cop, then it's bad for you. It's weird. What we saw with Floyd was an act of evil. And yes, that guy is a racist scumbag. He had something wrong with him. But I seen something else in that video. Not just by him, but from those cops that were standing next to him that didn't do anything. What we saw was an utter monstrosity of evil actions. This police officer that is charged to protect and serve decided to harass, maim, and ultimately kill George Floyd. We witnessed him put full weight of his body through his knee on an unarmed human African American man's neck. I was in complete awe and unthinkability of the horror I've seen for 9 minutes. Pure, radical evil, your choice. But this is the type of evil that is closely associated with bad guys or antagonists, that you would see on a video game, on a TV show, or in the movies. The actions that I witnessed, that we all witnessed, committed by that cop is the antithesis of the actions performed by good cops. So, why was he a cop for this long? What happened? How did he pass? I mean, it's easy. That cop was evil. He was an evil guy. He was a bad, evil guy. But if he was a bad, evil guy, how was he able to serve for so long? Let's talk about that. But first, one of the guiding philosophies, one of the guiding ideas that I'm using for this review of the situation is the banality of evil. This was coined by famous German Jewish philosopher Hannah Arendt. She would say that evil is not always as simple as an overriding desire to do no good. Her example was when she went to Jerusalem for the trial of Adolf Eichmann. As you know, Eichmann was charged with overseeing trains that transported prisoners to death camps. Like Eichmann, Officer Derek Chauvin will also face trial, and he was in charge of protecting and serving, but he did not do that, did he? Like Eichmann, who was charged with crimes against humanity, this officer will also be charged with crimes against his fellow Americans, especially Americans whose skin were a little more tinted than his. Hannah Arendt, she visited Jerusalem to cover the Eichmann trial. She expected to encounter a cold, calculating monster, a man who reveled in evil deeds. But what she discovered was something far more unexpected and shocking. And that's where this idea of how did this evil, racist man be a police officer for so long? Now, the obvious answer is he's white. Easy answer, lowest hanging fruit. Another answer is he's in a fraternity of police. They're going to cover each other. But going back to Arendt, and what I'm talking about in this video is what she discovered was Eichmann, just like Officer Chauvin, were altogether innocuous, seemingly extra-regular, normal little men. Eichmann was exactly what you would think he was. A stereotype, a cliche, just like Officer Derek Chauvin, a typical, stereotypical, stereotypical police bureaucrat. This guy was a goddamn sleepwalker in life. People like Officer Chauvin refuse to comprehend the weight of his crimes. Like you, myself, I'm unaware if this officer had an overriding sense of maliciousness. Was he afflicted with just doing harm to anybody he came across? I mean, it could be argued the guy had 18, count them, 18 previous complaints. What I seen in that video, besides a racist scumbag, was a apathetic, written, thoughtless tool of a man. Officers like him, people like him, they never stop to put themselves in other people's shoes, usually under it. Officers like Chauvin and that, you guys see the video? That serf, that peasant, that robotic, empty-minded fool of an officer standing next to him, and the other ones, they openly and actively refuse to think from another person's perspective. I've seen this time to time. I have. In the military. People that have an unquestionable sense of obligation to authority. What does that mean? Let me tell you something. Let me tell you a story. There's this Marine that I served with. This was going through boot camp. And this was, we barely have any free time in Marine Corps boot camp. Every second of the day you're doing something, but we're winding down for the night. We were writing letters to family members and stuff and talking amongst each other quietly. And somebody asked him, so, you know, if you were commanded to kill a kid over in the Middle East who's done nothing wrong, you're just commanded to kill him by your officer, would you do it? This guy looked at us and was like, yeah, follow my orders, I would kill him. It was my order, I had to do it. That right there is evil. What does this have to do with Officer Chauvin, whatever you say his name is? Him and those other officers are going to say the same thing. We're just doing our jobs. We didn't know. You didn't think. You didn't want to think. You didn't care. That's evil. And you killed somebody as a result of it. So that's an example. It's an unquestionable, unquenchable sense of obligation to authority. People like Chauvin, that Marine I referenced, and even people that you know, they're followers, blind followers, destined to live their entire life looking to be accepted, thirsty to fit in, thirsty to be led, And if everybody was like that, then we're going to give way to a strongman authoritative government, a dictatorship, totalitarianism, fascism. That's what that is. You simply do your duty regardless of the outcome. Killing a man when you didn't have to do that. And that's not good. People like Chauvin and the rest of those officers, what I seen in that video, they all suffered from blind allegiance, a complete self-deception of the morality of the actions that they take. Like Arendt, from whom I read, what transpired in Germany, what transpired in the North Star / the Gopher State / the state of 10,000 lakes, it made me rethink the concept of evil. That clown officer is exactly what I said he is. Aside from being a clown, the guy was a peace officer. His main duty is to protect and serve, to de-escalate the situations. He was somebody's husband. He was somebody's child. He was a bouncer in one of his other jobs. He seemed to be somebody that cared about protecting people, but clearly that was not the case. Chauvin and those droids around him. Wait a second. The police officers around him, what did they do? They stood there. Let that man die. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the banality of evil. That is evil. That is what I was referring to at the beginning of this video. People that are right there, and you had the opportunity to intervene. You knew it was wrong. You sat there and did absolutely nothing. Just like that pinhead who filmed Mr. Arbery when he died. Two white dudes, again, harassing and chasing a black guy. They ultimately killed him. You filmed it. Didn't say a damn word. You just filmed it. That's evil. This type of evil is an everyday sort of thing that occurs and nobody says anything about it. They don't justify it. They don't talk. You just accept it. It's just every day. It's just something that you do that's bad, that's evil. And that's the problem with some of these cops. These fearful. That's another thing. You're a cop and you're that scared, you shouldn't be a cop. These fearful, mindless cop bureaucrats eager to do their job while completely suspending empathy and perspective. You know, I can sit here and talk about this all day, but if I'm going to try to appeal to the people that are in the cops do no wrong club, then I'm just going to say this as well. America is a country that really don't care much about what minorities say. You don't. So let me quote somebody that you would care about. He's white, right? He's a majority. He's on a $100 bill. His name is Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin said, and I'm loosely paraphrasing, "The roads are littered with the bodies and bones of those who seen something and didn't think it could happen to them." That's what it is. You really think? I want you to be real critical. First, this conversation can diverge into multiple paths. First of all, do you even know why the cops were even created in the first place? Not for the reasons you think. That's for another video. I'll say it again slowly. The cops, the police officers, they were not created for the reasons you think they were created for. There's a reason why the cops were there in the first place. And trust me, it wasn't necessarily to protect and serve all of the populace, but I'll just leave it there. Secondly, it's happening at an alarming rate to minorities, especially African Americans, Native Americans. But it can happen to you. It can happen to your loved one. It can happen to a friend, a coworker, a neighbor. And you guys have to act to stop this type of stuff. Your voices must be heard. And if you have to riot, yes, you have to do something to get them to understand that these killings are unacceptable. Or you're just part of the problem. And when you die, or when your mother dies, or somebody close to you dies because of a mishap by a police officer, then what? Then you never thought it could happen, and then it did. In closing, you don't need to be cruel, sadistic, or vicious to embody evil. All a person really has to do is stand idly by, blindly follow the lead or order of another person. And that is not only my opinion of true evil, but that is the banality of evil. Evil and bad men succeed. Bad men and women, they succeed when good men and women sit there and do absolutely nothing. And that's what makes this case so bad. Yes, the guy was a racist scumbag, but it's worse than that. It's becoming normal. Executions on the street are becoming, once upon a time when something like that happened, you'd be like, oh my God, he died. Now when it happens, it's more like, I wonder if everybody else sees this. I wonder if it will go to trial. It's not even the shock of a death by your fellow Americans, by your fellow human beings. It doesn't even matter. And that is because it's being accepted, or nobody's stopping it. So tell me, what can be done to save ourselves from mindless obedience? Because I've said it before, under these circumstances, and a slippery slope fallacy as an example, you sit there and let shit like this happen? This is not a democracy. You are now living in an authoritative police state where you could be gone like that and no one will say nothing. It just happens. Like those officers that was standing next to him as he died. You could have acted. You could have said something. You didn't have to disrespect or contradict the officer, but you could be like, all right, man, let's let him up. Or, hey, let's put some pressure somewhere else. But no. You stood there. He stood there and watched that man die. You, sir, as evil as Officer Chauvin, if not worse, because you let it happen. You did not act. You did not care. How in the world did any of you become police officers? If this is, I'm going to say something that's very Trumpish, but replace all the fucking cops with robots. Because that's exactly what we just seen. We've seen a human pretending to be a robot. Unfeeling, uncaring, eyes completely wide shut. And that type of style of policing is unacceptable. And when you do stuff like that, when you commit evil by not stopping it or just allowing it to happen, then you give rise to reverse utilitarianism. The greatest, these people, what do they say? Suffering is existence. So we just end all existence to end all suffering. Right? Because I'm telling you, what I just seen, that was bad. It was, it was preventable. I'll say this. The general populace is getting more and more amped up. We need to do something, and we need to do it quickly. And killing somebody over a counterfeit $20 bill, the punishment must fit the crime. It must. and these other cops have the integrity, have the self-strength, the wherewithal, their intestinal fortitude to stand up for what is right. That's why you became a cop, right? Don't stand there and let evil shit happen. And that's why Officer Chauvin and that other cop, it reminds me of what Hannah Arendt was talking about. It reminds me of the Adolf Eichmann trial. Eichmann sat there, he sent people on trains to get killed. This officer stood there. He knew he was dying and did nothing. Did nothing. What is the difference between Adolf Eichmann, Derek Chauvin, and the rest of those officers? What is the real difference? What is the real difference? Neither of them outwardly espoused evil. You couldn't tell by looking at them. When you close your mind and when you close your eyes, don't close your mind, that's been happening. When you close your eyes and you picture somebody that's pure evil, what comes to your mind? A guy in red spandex with pitchforks, with little horns coming out of his head with a pitchfork? The last thing that you think about is a glass-wearing, normal-looking bureaucrat in Eichmann. Or the last thing you think about, well, I don't know, this might be changing, but when you were growing up back in the old days, Gen Z or the baby bloomers, when you think about evil, cops barely came into your mind. But that's just the point of this video. Evil isn't necessarily like, you can't just look at that, oh, he's evil. It's not like that anymore. Now, evil is standing there and letting evil actions take place and not acting. That, to me, is evil. It's an everyday type of thing too, and it's not just unique to people in the military and police. You ever go to say like I'll give you an example. You go to the grocery store, you go to the gas station, you're thirsty, you're really, really thirsty. For some reason, you're a penny short of something that you need to get. You're a dime short. The cashier on the other side could easily be like, go ahead, man, it's a dime, go ahead. And people short their change, because there's a change drawer thing, like when you're at the cash register, you can't go like above or below like $5. So, you know, it's like take a penny, leave a penny. But in this case, the unfilling cashier is like, no, this guy's about to die of thirst. He's 5 cents short. You say you don't got the change, you can't buy it. You can't get it. Get out of my store. That's evil. It's examples like that. But back to the police officers. Officer Derek Chauvin and the other ones. You guys sat there and let a murder take place. You didn't even try. Because you were eager to do your job. And you suspended empathy and perspective. You did not care. Like the blind leading the blind. And in situations like that, evil will always prevail. And that's the most scariest part of it. And when stuff like that happens, it gives credence to my next video. We'll talk about rioting, looting, rebellion, and America. Because just like this, there's some things you guys just don't quite understand about rioting and looting. There are people out there, they don't get it. Is rioting bad? Yes, it is. But there's a reason why it happened. They didn't just wake up and decide to do it. And yeah, you will have people that will take advantage of the situation that was perpetuated by the actions of a couple dumbass, blind, out-of-touch police officers that you kept on the force after having 18 different complaints from different fucking people. What do you think was going to happen? What is evil? That right there, guys. What we just seen, that entire act, and most importantly, the officers that sat there and let it happen. That is the banality of evil.